Welcome to What Does It Do, where we talk about end boards, half boards, and how to beat them. For our inaugural episode, we're going to be looking at Yummy Azamina, because even though Snatchy's at 1, because of the new Dark Magician, it's like he was never limited. The full Yummy Azamina board is practically unbreakable. It is possible, but you better hope your star is that you open perfectly. A typical end board looks like this: a Yummy Synchro name, Diabell Queen of the White Forest, Azamina Ilvia Sylvia, Yummy Surprise set, Gaze of Tamaya set, and then potentially that Deception of the Sinful Spoils reset in the end phase. Along with 3 unknown cards in your opponent's hand, probably non-engine. The first important thing to know is that the Yummy cards are usually the interaction of the deck. This doesn't mean that they won't use an Omni Negate on a Habakiri, but they probably don't have to. So let's quickly go over what this end board does, starting out with the Yummy interactions. Every Yummy Synchro monster shares this same effect. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you could return this card to the extra deck, special summon up to 2 Yummy monsters from your graveyard. Note that semicolon, which means that it returns to the extra deck for cost, meaning if you top deck an Imperm on your turn, you probably shouldn't activate it, hoping to hit that Yummy, because it'll just dodge it anyway. The 2 monsters you'll see people summon is usually a Yummy Snatchy from the graveyard and then any of the main deck names. And Yummy Snatchy is probably the most important reason, is because they can quick effect, pay 100 life points, and synchro summon on your turn, and then start the cycle all over again. This effect can only be used in the main phase or your opponent's battle phase. It's also crucial to know which main deck Yummy monster is in your opponent's graveyard when they go to activate the Yummy Synchro monsters to special summon them, because they get an additional effect when they are summoned by the effect of a Synchro monster. Cupsy Yummy on summon can search for a Yummy card, or if it was summoned by a Synchro monster, it can draw a card. Cookie Yummy on summon can lower a monster's attack by 1,000, or if it was summoned by a Synchro monster, it can destroy that monster instead. Lollipo on summon can target a card in your graveyard and shuffle it back in the deck, or if it was summoned by the effect of a Synchro, it can banish it instead. And finally, Marshmallow can add a Yummy spell card back from the graveyard, or if it was summoned by the effect of a Synchro monster, it can place a field spell from banishment or deck. Not only do all of the Synchro monsters share that same on-field effect to put themselves back in Special 2 from grave, they each have their own on-Synchro summon effect. Cupsy Yummy Way on Synchro summon can search for 2 Yummy monsters and then discard a card. Lollipo Yummy Way on Synchro Summon can special 2 Yummy monsters from the graveyard with their effects negated. And finally, Cookie Yummy Way on Summon can target up to 2 monsters on the field and flip them face down. So not only do you need to worry about the main deck monsters, you also need to know that Cookie Yummy Way can be Synchro Summoned at any time. And if you're playing something like an Xyz focus deck, that can be pretty devastating. The final main Yummy effect to be aware of is Yummy Surprise. It's got 3 effects, and the third effect honestly isn't that important. You should probably still just follow up on it, but the main effects that's most useful is the first and the second. The second one can reborn a Yummy monster or can special one from your hand. So let's say this Cupsy Yummy Way was sent to the graveyard and we had no way to stop it. Yummy Surprise can then reborn that Cupsy Yummy Way to get your Yummy stuff back online. And Yummy Surprise's first effect is one of their interruptions, if they choose to do that. They can target up to 2 light beasts on their field, and then target 2 cards on their opponent's field, and then put them all back into the hand. One final thing to know about Yummy Surprise is that when it reborns a monster, that monster cannot attack directly during this turn. Keep an eye out for that just in case your opponent tries to go for a game with a special summoned Yummy Surprise monster. And then the other half of the board is Azamina Ilya Sylvia, Diabell, and the Gaze of Tamayas. Let's start with Azamina Ilya Sylvia because it's the simplest. When your opponent activates a card or effect, you can quick effect, tribute it, and negate the effect. Simple as that. So if you go Raigeki to try to blow up their Yummy stuff, they can just stop it with Azamina Ilya Sylvia. Once Sylvia's gone, you'll probably see them activate the Gaze of Tamayas to shuffle back that Dark Magician of Destruction to summon out Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. And then Red Eye's Dark Dragoon can in fact negate as well. When a card or effect is activated, you can discard 1 card, negate the activation, destroy the card, and then if you do all that, it gains 1,000 attack. This is a once per turn effect, which means they'll probably get to use this effect up to 2 times because they summoned it with the Gaze of Tamayas, and during the end phase of the next turn, that Red Eyes Dark Dragoon will be banished. And the final piece of interaction that they have is Diabell, Queen of the White Forest. In response to an opponent's card or effect, they can quick effect send a spell card or trap card from their hand or field to the graveyard, and then special summon a level 7 or lower Synchro Tuner monster. Now, this has multiple things that they could do. One of the big things you'll see them do is Zolin the Shackled Dragon. Zolin can quick effect negate the effects of a Chainlink 1 effect or Chainlink 2 effect as long as he is Chainlink 3 or higher. It's a little convoluted, but in practice, you'll pick it up right away and then know what to avoid. Zolin, however, isn't the only thing that Diabell can summon. It does mention 7 or lower Synchro Tuner monster, which is, of course, all of the Yummy Way monsters. And so, if they lose both Surprise as well as their Synchro monster, Diabell can do that, send a spell trap, and then special summon back that Cupsy Yummy Way or whatever Synchro monster they might need. And then once again, they are ready to go with all of their yummy effects. Not only do they have synergies like this, but they can also bridge into each other. Let's go over some basic combos to both show choke points as well as how these engines do in fact bridge into each other. So here is the 1 card Cupsy combo. I will show you little spots where you can try to interact with this combo. That being said, the Yummy deck is very well known for not being hand trappable, so keep that in mind. That said, let's go ahead and get started. We can normal summon the Cupsy, and a lot of decks you do hit the normal summon. This deck you don't. It doesn't really change too much if you hit this normal summon, so I probably wouldn't. On the summon of Cupsy, they'll search out a copy of Yummy Surprise. Then they can link off that Cupsy Yummy for a Yummy Snatchy. Now, Yummy Snatchy on summon is going to be trying to place a copy of their field spell face up. This is one where you could hit, because if you hit this, they have to use this added surprise to special back this Cupsy Yummy, and it does hinder their combo a little bit. It doesn't stop them. Remember, it does not stop them, but it does hinder a little bit. So on the summon, we'll go ahead and place that Mignon. Mignon can activate targeting the Cupsy to special. We can go ahead and sync these two off into our Cupsy Yummy Way, being sure to special that Cupsy Yummy Way into the extra monster zone. On special summon, it can search for 2 yummy monsters. We'll grab a Cookie and a Marshmallow. Marshmallow is the important one. Cookie could have been Lollipop, doesn't really matter. But we have to discard one, so we're going to discard that Marshmallow as well. We can special summon Cookie because we have that Synchro level 2 tuner monster, and we'll link that Synchro and the extra monster zone into our Gravity controller. Now we have the ability to Synchro summon using our Cookie and our Gravity controller into Lollipop Yummy Way. Lollipop on summon can special summon 2 yummy monsters from the graveyard with their effects negated. We have some really good ones to do that with. Let's go ahead and Synchro summon into the Starham here. And then on the summon of the Starham, we can discard a card and then special summon one of those monsters used as Synchro material. If they have a trap card or a spell card that they want to use as like an endboard piece, like an Infinite Impermanence, you'll probably see them discard that here because it comes back eventually. And then that summon from the Starham will be the Cupsy Yummy Way. They will go Yummy Surprise, special summoning the the Marshmallow Yummy. On the summon of the Marshmallow, we can add back that Yummy Surprise, so basically it's a free special summon. Go ahead and synchro all of these for a 6 to make Roselia. Now, I need to mention this as well. Right before this summon of Roselia, this is probably one of your better spots to Nibiru. They've already used their Yummy Surprise, and so they can't special summon again with this. They've already used Mignon, so they can't special summon again. If they had a Link Spider for that Link token, they'd have the Link 1, but they've already used Mignon, so they can't special summon. They're kind of just stuck with what they have. They only have the Yummy stuff. They do have the Yummy stuff, though. Keep that in mind, because that Yummy Surprise can basically be full Yummy after they have stuff in their graveyard set up. So if you Nibiru here, it's pretty solid. Anyway, go ahead and synchro these monsters into that Roselia. Roselia on summon is the bridge piece to get into the Azamina line. It's also a choke point. So it's interesting. So Roselia can search for the Azamina pieces. So if you hit this, then you don't have to deal with like Azamina Ilia Sylvia or the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. That said, if they already have the wanted, hitting Reselia does nothing. So it's like a weird thing where this is technically a choke point, but it doesn't necessarily stop. They have 3 other cards that you don't know. One of these could be Wanted, one of these could be Diabellstar. They could essentially full combo still. It's just the risk you have to take. This deck does play like 20 hand traps, so there's a good chance that they probably bricked on everything else is just hand traps, like this hand, for example. So hitting this isn't a bad spot. If you were to hit something, I would probably do this, or I would do that Yummy Snatchy, just given the vibes, as well as that Nibiru. That's probably the best Nibiru spot for sure, because if you Nibiru this, then they're just stuck on Yummy for sure, unless, like I said, they have the Wanted. If they have the Wanted, they just have everything, right? Anyway, continuing on, Reselia on summon will send a spell card to the graveyard to search out a copy of LZ. LZ can activate and special summon herself. Then they can synchro summon into Diabell, the queen of the White Forest. We can go Chainlink 1 Diabell, Chainlink 2 LZ since it was used as synchro material. LZ will search us a copy of Wanted, and Diabell can actually add back that Infinite Impermanence if we wanted to as well, which is very, very nice. Let's go Wanted. Wanted will search out the Diabellstar. We do need one more send or one more discard. They could send the Lollipo if they want to keep the rest of their hand. They could send something else in their hand. They wouldn't send the Diabell because that's an end board piece, but they could send Lollipo because they can just special it back off surprise on your turn. Let's pretend that they're not going to, though. We'll go Diabellstar by sending that Imperm that we added back. If they add back the Minion, that's definitely what they're going to be sending. I would be very surprised if they didn't send that for the Diabellstar summon. Diabellstar on summon can set the copy of Deception. Deception can set, activate, then we can go ahead and banish this Diabellstar to special summon the Dark Magician of Destruction. Dark Magician of Destruction will search out that copy of Gaze of Timaeus. Deception can now go ahead and send that Dark Magician to the graveyard to search out our Hollowed Azamina. Hollowed Azamina can activate, sending Deception to summon our Ilia Sylvia. And with that, our end board is basically complete. We have our Omni Negate, we have our special summon of a Synchro monster, and of course we have our Yummy combo, followed up by a second Omni Negate and our Yummy Surprise if our Yummy stuff gets interrupted. A lot of stuff to play through, as well as three unknown cards. You had no idea what these 3 cards were the entire combo. One final thing to note, Diabell to summon a light synchro monster needs to send a spell trap. So there are 2 options. There's 2 things you can do. If Deception was used or sent in the end phase, it can reset itself, and so that can be the spell card they send. Or they could just have another spell card they want to send, and Wanted can banish itself, putting that Deception back on the bottom and giving them a draw. So they are able to replenish some cards because of that as well. There's a couple different options you'll see people do. But yeah, that's the 1 card Yummy Cupsy Yummy combo with some tiny little choke points. If you want to hit them, you can hit them there. And here is the 1 card Wanted combo. In the draw phase, they'll start with Wanted, Seeker of Sinful Spoils, to search out a copy of Diabellstar. This could potentially be an Ash Blossom, but if they're just using this to get to the Diabellstar, then you probably shouldn't, because they might just already have the Diabellstar. So I probably would not Ash this, but if you feel like you need to, by all means, I guess go for it. And then in the main phase, they'll go ahead and go Diabellstar summon by sending probably one of their spell traps. On summon, they can activate that to set a Deception. This could be another point of interaction. If you Effect Veiler this or Imperm this, they will stop them from any of the Deception. And if they don't open any of their Yummy stuff, this basically ends their turn. So that is a pretty good little choke point. But they very well could still just have opened up the Yummy stuff. It's the same with the previous combo. If you stop something, there's a good chance they could have opened it, but there's also a good chance they opened 3 hand traps and bricked on those as well. This is a solid choke point to stop the Deception from getting out. Continuing the combo, we go ahead and banish that Diabellstar to make our Dark Magician of Destruction. Usually this Dark Magician of Destruction will be summoned into the extra monster zone because it'll be linked into a gravity controller. If your opponent doesn't play gravity controller, they will probably still put that up there to try to like bait something, to try to make you think that there's going to be a gravity control up there. I probably wouldn't bother hitting this until I see the gravity controller. Regardless, Dark Magician of Destruction is another choke point. If you hit this, you stop one of two things, which can be very impactful. As you saw in the Yummy combo, Dark Magician of Destruction usually searches out a copy of Gaze of Timaeus. However, if they did not open Yummy stuff, they're going to be searching out a copy of Magician Souls because that will help them get into their Yummy stuff. And this is why I think that Dark Magician of Destruction could be a solid piece to stop. If you Ash Blossom it in Perm or whatever, it'll stop them from either getting the Gaze of Timaeus or the Magician Souls. If they were searching for Magician Souls, that means they don't have the Yummy stuff. And if you stopped that and they stop getting to the Magician Souls, then you're in a good spot because they don't have any of their Yummy interactions, which is really dang good. If they were searching for Gaze of Timaeus and you stopped it, then basically just means you don't have to deal with a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon on your turn, which is also really solid too because it's an Omni Negate that you don't have to deal with. So hitting the Dark Magician of Destruction honestly isn't a bad idea at all, as long as they're starting with the Diabell stuff. Anyway, let's continue on with the combo. Magician Souls can special summon itself by sending a level 6 or higher Dark Spellcaster from the deck to the graveyard, being that Diabellstar. Then Dark Magician can be linked off into our Gravity Controller. We can Synchro Summon into Cupsy Yummy Way now, and then Cupsy can search out our Cupsy and our Marshmallow. Let's go ahead and discard that Marshmallow as we did in the previous combo. Now this is a really unique thing that, because they started with the Wanted / the Diabellstars line that they can do, they can go Deception, send that Cupsy Yummy Way to search out the Hollowed Azamina. Hollowed Azamina can then go ahead and send that Deception by reveal the Azamina and then send the Deception to Special Azamina, which basically means that now they are nib proof. They are all hand trap proof if they needed to stop any of them, but specifically Nibiru is probably going to be the big one that they want to stop here. They'll normal summon the Cupsy. Cupsy can go ahead and search that Surprise. They can link one into our Yummy Snatchy. Yummy Snatchy will go ahead and set that Yummy Amusement Mignon. Mignon can target that Cupsy, special it back. Synchro both of those into our copy of Lolipo Yummy Way. Lolipo will specifically be summoning that Cupsy as well as one of the main decks, specifically not the Marshmallow, because as we saw in the Yummy combo, Marshmallow can just do the surprise little trick. And then from here, we can do the Synchro into the Starham. Starham can go ahead and discard another card to special back that Cupsy Yummy Way. And then we can go Yummy Surprise to special our Yummy Marshmallow Yummy, and then that'll add back that Surprise, so we just get it right back. We'll go ahead and Synchro Summon 3 of those into our Roselia. Roselia will send the Mignon to search out Elzette. Elzette will special summon herself after revealing, and then we'll go ahead and Synchro Summon into Diabell Queen. Chainlink 1 Diabell Queen to probably add back that Infinite Impermanence. And the Chainlink 2 will be Elzette to search out a copy of Wanted. So this is generally the end board if they start with Wanted or Diabellstar and they didn't already have access to the Yummy stuff. They won't be able to get to a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon because they had to search that Magician's Souls instead. However, there are still some pros because of that. They have this copy of Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils, which means they are guaranteed to be able to go Wanted in Graveyard effect, banishing itself, putting back the Deception on the bottom, and drawing a card. So they're going to end their turn with 6 cards in hand rather than 5 cards, which is where they started. Actually, they won't be ending their turn with that because they're going to be setting their stuff like Yummy Surprise, and they'll probably set that Wanted as well. And then if it was an Imperm they added back, they'll set that too, so you get what I mean though. And then from here, the interruptions are generally pretty much the same, just that they won't have that Red Eyes Dark Dragoon Omni Negate option. They might just make Zollan faster as well because they have that easy send to make him, and he is a force to be reckoned with as well. One more minor thing to make note of is that, let's say you went first and they're going second, and then they're forced to go into the Gravity Controller. Gravity Controller, or having any Link 1 in their extra monster zone or anywhere, honestly, is probably a good spot to hit because they need to have a Link 1 or a Synchro 2 to be able to special summon their Yummy cards from hand. And if they're already normal summoned, then you're in a good spot. Let's say you have like Fallen of the Virtuous, you can pop this and then they can't special summon one of those Yummy cards from hand. Keep in mind though, if they happen to search Yummy Marshmallow, or if they already have it in their hand and their board is empty, they can just special summon the Yummy Marshmallow. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about is if they are playing a 60 card variant of this deck list, they are guaranteed to be playing the Sky Striker package in it. The Sky Striker package is very simple. They'll probably be playing more cards in this, probably 3 copies of Engage, a Widow Anchor, and a Hornet Drones if they're playing 60 cards. If they're not playing 60 cards, they still have a chance of playing this because this is still Yummy combo. While they're playing, if they ever have 2 effect monsters on field, they can link summon those off into Camellia. Camellia can go ahead and dump that copy of Engage, or honestly the Hornet Drones either, doesn't necessarily matter. Depends on how many spell cards they have in grave probably. And then they can link that Camellia off into Kagari. Kagari can add back that Engage. Engage can go ahead and effect and search out the Hornet Drones. Then if they had the 3 spells engraved, they get to draw a card. Hornet Drones can then make a token, and then they can synchro summon that Link 1 Kagari along with that token into one of their Yummy synchro monsters, and then they're just full Yummy combo from there. So if you start interrupting your opponent, and they can still get to 2 monsters, just keep in mind that that probably was maybe not the right place to interrupt. That said, if they start by making 2 monsters and going into Camellia, it's a good sign that this is a good choke point to hit. Camellia is one of the choke points, and so if you can imperm Camellia, it's pretty good. It's pretty dang good, because if they're starting with Camellia, that means their hand was probably pretty weak to begin with. Last but not least, let's quickly talk about what are probably the very best hand traps to use against this deck. And this just goes without saying, this is how you beat every single deck. It's Molcharmi Fuwa. Perulia also hurts this deck pretty hard as well. Just the fact that they summon all the Diabellstar and all the Yummy stuff from hand a lot of the times. They do have good lines through Fuwa, though. They're half boards, they're not incredible, and you do get a couple draws, but Fuwa will definitely stop the majority of the huge board. The other thing is Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird is just one of the most annoying floodgates we have in the game. That said, it does hit this deck a decent amount. You see how much we search, especially when we start getting to the White Forest stuff. White Forest is notorious for getting hit by Droll and getting hurt by Droll. And so if you are able to use Droll on them, there's a good chance you have them on really, really rough board. I will say, though, a good Yummy Azamina pilot will probably be able to come up with a half board even through Droll. It's not the end of the world for them. I mean, if they start Wanted, it's always going to be in the draw phase, so you can't Droll them there. And then Diabellstar gets around Droll by setting, so they'll probably get it to at the very, very least 1 Omni Negate. Just keep that in mind. Droll does hurt, though, because of how much they search. It'll definitely be a half board. Okay, so let's quickly talk about what their Fuwa line will be if you do hit them with Fuwa. Like I said, it's really pretty dang solid. If they go normal summon Cupsy and then go effect to search for their copy of Yummy Snatchy, and you hit the Fuwa here because you know that what they're going to do next is link summon, so of course they're going to do that. So they're going to link summon. You'll get a draw off of the 1 Fuwa there. Pretend this Ash Blossom's not an Ash Blossom. So here's the Yummy Snatchy. They'll go Yummy Snatchy effect to set the Minion. Then they can go ahead and Minion special back that Cupsy. If this is all they do because they didn't open the Azamina side as well, they're going to have their Cupsy set and then probably still 3 hand traps because this deck plays like 20. But we are pretending like we do have that Wanted in hand. They can go Wanted here, search for the copy of Diabellstar. Diabellstar can go ahead and set a copy of Deception after you sent... Let's do the nib. After they sent that to the grave to special, we go Deception. And then this is where the second draw would be. They would banish the Diabellstar, make that Dark Magician, and then here's our second draw. Dark Magician on summon, go ahead and search that Gaze of Timaeus. So just with this alone, they have access to that Omni Negate, as well as a pretty hefty Yummy line through just 2 draws. If they are playing a very specific card, they can go even further. They can go Deception to send the Dark Magician and then search for the Hollowed Azamina. That's what they would normally do. Now under Fuwa, this will give them another draw, and they don't want to do that, so you might start seeing people be playing Azamina Debtors over Hollowed instead, because Azamina Debtors is a quick play, and it does pretty much the same thing as Hollowed Azamina. That said, Hollowed Azamina is definitely more versatile, can do a lot more stuff. If they are playing Azamina Debtors, that basically adds 1 more Omni Negate to their list, because they can go ahead and set that Yummy Snatchy, the Gaze, and the Azamina Debtors, and then on your turn during your draw phase, they can go ahead and use Deaders, sending the Deception to special summon that copy of Ilia Sylvia. And then boom, one Omni Negate is online. Once they use that, of course, they can go Gaze to special summon a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon by shuffling back that Dark Magician of Destruction. And then boom, another Omni Negate, all on your turn under Fulos. 2 draws is all you got. Now, once again, it's still a half board. They're missing like the White Forest stuff. They're missing most of their Yummy cards. They can still get through a lot of them though, regardless, because Cupsy can summon. Cupsy can search out a copy of whatever the matchup may need, whether it be Lolipo or Cookie. Certainly the other one will probably Marshmallow, and then discarding whichever one they'd rather have in the graveyard at that time. And so that way, when they use Yummy, or Cupsy Yummy, they can special these back, and then Cookie can go ahead and destroy something. They can Synchro again into the big Cookie and do some shenanigans. Send these back, and then even go Cupsy, Snatchy, and get a draw for the Cupsy. And then Surprise has the other effect where it can bounce some cards as well. It's crazy how much they can do under Fulos. That's just 2 draws. 2 draws is the maximum they should be giving you. If they're giving you more than 2 draws, they probably either had a horribly bad hand, or B, just don't know how to play the deck that well. I don't know how to play the deck that well either, so I'd probably be giving you like 6 draws as well, and that'd just be game. There are ways to play into these combos. They aren't perfect, but at least they exist. And with that in mind, how do we go about breaking these boards? First thing to know is that Yummy Azamina is a difficult deck to play. The Yummy cards are so good, but require a lot of thought that some people just might leave out. On top of that, there's a good chance they could mess up their combo if you sent some interruptions their way. Simply put, if you play better than they do, even if they have a full board, you still have a chance. Baiting out their Omni Negates can be key so that you can interact with their Yummy engine. Quick plays like the Fallen and the Virtuous are just so good at breaking boards that are layered like this. A simple example would be leading something like Raigeki to force Ilia Sylvia's Negate out, and then chaining Fallen and the Virtuous to a Yummy Snatchy. They usually won't have a second Omni Negate on board ready to stop the second board breaker. Saving an offensive bell to prevent Yummy Synchros from summoning is helpful, or even a Call by the Grave to target a Snatchy are some other good ways to stop them if you don't main board breakers. It is a hard task to do, and a good player will make it near impossible to do so, but it's still doable. And final thing to note is that this deck plays like 20 non-engine. There's a solid chance they might end up just breaking on it. Don't count on it, but it is a real scenario that happens. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that this video will help you with your next regionals or locals or whatever event you might be going to. I know that researching all this has helped me a ton, so I am trying to pass along that knowledge. Thanks for watching. Please give me a like and subscribe to the channel as well. We'll see y'all later. Have a good one.